But in reality, we know, I know, I've read on, I've cheated, I've read to the end. Nothing could be further from the truth. God is firmly on deck of God's boat. It just doesn't feel like it. Now, Naomi could have clung to that identity, couldn't she? She came back into Bethlehem with that identity as the tragic widow. She could have clung to that for the rest of her life. She could have dressed in black for the rest of her life. Poor Naomi. Look what the world has thrown at her. And yet she still believes in the one true God. Poor, bitter, empty, widowed, cast away Naomi. But as I said, I've read to the end. And she willingly drops that identity. She lets that go. The poor widow, she drops it. And God opens up a new aspect of our life, a whole new chapter. But that's not for us. That's chapter 2. Not for us this time. Anna and I have been watching Around the World in 80 Days. I don't know if you've seen that. If you ask Anna, she thinks she's been watching Dr. Dolittle. She's confused. But there are lots of different modes of travel in Around the World in 80 Days. It's good fun. And last week Bruce was talking about, he used the analogy of the plane, the rat in the plane. So can I this morning suggest a freight train analogy for us? In America, in the 1920s, after the Depression, lots of people were destitute, homeless, no jobs. And they used to call them, in those days, they used to call them hobos. There's a picture of some hobos. And typically they had nothing other than what they stood up in. The clothes they were wearing and whatever they could carry in their hands. And they survived by begging, perhaps by stealing, and by casual work if there was any. And if they wanted to move on, the best way was hopping on a train, a freight train, jumping a freight train. And then America was crisscrossed by these slow-moving, huge, great long freight trains. And sometimes you could sneak aboard one of these trains while they were in a siding, but in the siding they were guarded. So the best way of hopping on board was to hop on board while they were moving. So you ran along beside a train, you caught hold of the rail, and then you jumped on board. But to jump on board, you had to drop what you were carrying. It was a dangerous thing. You needed both hands. It's a two-handed job. And ideally, you drop everything you were carrying to grab hold of the train, grab hold of the rail, and swing aboard. What little you've got, you let go of. And can I suggest this morning that God's freight train is rumbling through Ottery, through Alphington, through Devon. And it's unstoppable, always moving on. And perhaps for some of us it's time we moved on. We've been here too long. That we need to drop whatever it is we're carrying, whatever identity we've clung to. Good boy, bad girl, whatever disqualification you think you hold that stops you participating in God's plans. Whatever history you haul around. Broken relationships, broken promises, broken hearts. May it be time to drop those, to let go, to drop them all, and to swing on the boxcar and to see where it takes us. We started with Jane Austen. We went a little bit Victor Hugo with Les Mis, and now we're a bit John Steinbeck. So I'm mixing up my literary styles. So I'm sorry about that. But I hope Ruth chapter 1 is an encouragement to you all. Naomi and Ruth were empty. They brought nothing to the table. Naomi was faithful, and Ruth was kind. But that's it. That was all. There was nothing about them. But it's about the God that they followed, about the God that they served. And God took their faithfulness, their kindness, and he raised up a deliverer, a king. But our heroines know nothing of this at the moment in chapter 1. The final verse, 22. Empty, bitter Naomi returns from Moab, accompanied by Ruth, the empty outsider. They arrive in Bethlehem about the time of the barley harvest. Now, Ruth and Naomi might be expecting, we can get some barley, we can get some sheaves of barley, and if we can borrow or beg some oil, we can have ourselves some barley bread. But the God freight train is headed somewhere else, isn't it? Somewhere else entirely, somewhere they could never imagine. But more of that later. And if you've come to church today thinking, I'm bringing nothing to the table. If you've come to church this morning perhaps expecting nothing, particularly if you knew I was speaking. If you've come to church expecting nothing, if you've come to church expecting nothing to change, Naomi is our role model. God loves nothing, doesn't he? In Genesis 1, God made everything out of nothing. Are you stuck in the same place? Maybe we need to drop some stuff so we can catch hold of God's freight train. And then who knows what he has in store for us. Thank you. Shall I pray? Lord God, thank you. Thank you that it's not about us, it's about you. And what a great God you are. That we can be confident in your love, in your goodness, in your faithfulness, no matter what's going on in our lives, no matter what's happened in the past, that we have that promise of a life with you, your goodness, your faithfulness, your love, your glory. And then, Lord, I just pray that in the coming week we'll just be reminded of that. It's not about us, it's about you. And we take strength in that. Amen. Ruth is